Ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you something, brother.
It's Talk Wrestling Live with Felix the Cat Katlovski
and Gemini Joe.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
We heard rumbling. No, we heard rumors. Homicide. Conan. 5150 is LAX.
Listen live on Mondays at 4 p.m. on NorthCoastUnderground.com.
And follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
I'm in no mood for your wife crack. Let's get it on.
Hello everybody and welcome to Talk Wrestling Live on NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with you. Gemini Joe along with Felix the Cat here with you for another week.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Talk Wrestling Live. Right now we're going to be talking about Impact Wrestling, where we will be recapping everything that happened from Impact Wrestling last week from June 14th. So without further ado, let's get started with Fear After Dark. Are you scared? It's time for Fear After Dark.
I thought this was fun and games.
Fear is a funny thing.
Cero, miedo.
Fear was meant for the art of survival. I am the new beginning.
Because we are for Ohio. By Ohio. Because we are Ohio versus everything.
I'm better than every single one in that locker room. Tessa Blanchard is undeniable.
I'm not a man. I'm a machine.
We begin Fear After Dark by talking about Impact Wrestling from June 14th, just last week, and we began Impact with an Extreme Rules tag team match with RVD and Sabu taking on the North, Ethan Page, and the Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander. Now, since there are no rules in an Extreme Rules match, Moose got involved and he assisted the North to win their match over RVD and Sabu. Now, this is interesting because not long ago, Moose was kind of angry with the North and he wanted to leave for his own solo career. I guess he regretted leaving and now he's back with them. So this means that the North will be facing LAX for the Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championship at Bash at the Brewery on July 5th. Now after the match, Tommy Dreamer ran in and he came out to help his Extreme Original pals. Dreamer threw Moose back into the ring, but just as Rob Van Dam was setting up for a Van Terminator, that's when Moose managed to escape. Now what will happen when Moose takes on Rob Van Dam on July 7th at Slammiversary in Dallas, Texas? That's the big question.
Yeah, then we'll see if Moose can upset or defeat one of the Extreme Icons.
Moose hasn't been very happy with the North lately for not getting the job done, I mentioned earlier, in some of their previous matches, but this time, even after defeating RVD and Sabu, Moose was still unhappy with the North because he felt that they didn't have his back. Then we had Jessica Havoc. She recently returned to Impact Wrestling, joining James Mitchell and Su Yung. Havoc was in action, and she had Mitchell and Su Yung by her side. She took on Masha Slamovich. I guess she's a new face to Impact Wrestling, maybe an enhancement talent. So Havoc controlled most of the match, but Masha managed to get some momentum on her side. Now still, Havoc took away that momentum from Masha with this swinging slam, and later Havoc closed the match out with a choke slam, followed by a tombstone piledriver to get the victory after the pinfall. Up next, Raj was in action, taking on Cody Deaner. Now Raj had some support from Rohit and Gama Singh by his side, while Cody had his buddy cousin Jake watching his back. Now Cody kind of surprised me here. He hit a high-risk move when he dived through the ropes onto Raj, onto the outside of the ring. Rohit managed to get a distraction in, and it allowed Raj to hit a modified hanging neck breaker on Cody Deaner. With all these distractions, Gama Singh found an opening to take the referee's attention away from the match, giving Gama a chance to get in some cheap shot open fists on Cody. Jake saw this and he put the interruptions to an end as he targeted Gama Singh, but Gama looked like he was having a heart attack. It looked like there were going to be no more distractions to the match, but Rohit attacked Cody with a running knee, and then Raj hit his finisher to win the match with a 3 count. So after the match, Gama Singh got up, and it looked like nothing had happened to him after all. So I guess Gama faked his own heart attack just to take the referee's attention away from the match. That's really taking one for the team.
Yeah, it is, but you can only do that so long.
So, backstage, we saw Johnny Impact offering to help out Michael Elgin in his match later against Willie Mack. Johnny Impact wanted to assist Elgin in sending Mack to the hospital, but Elgin wasn't interested in Johnny's help, and he told him not to get involved. Now, we heard Rosemary questioning whether James Mitchell could control his monster, Havoc. Really, he has two monsters to control. He's got Su Yung, who didn't have a match in that bout, and then Jessica Havoc, as we know. And then later we saw Sami Callihan. He was exploring the women's locker room, but Tessa Blanchard wasn't happy to see him intruding. Tessa challenged Sami's OVE buddy, Jay Chris, to a match for next week on Impact, which will be this week. Jordan Grace then took on Madison Rayne, and Kiera Hogan showed up. She looked a little bit different. No longer was she the girl on fire sporting that red hair. This time she had a darker look. I think we saw her hair in black and blue, and Hogan joined the commentary booth along with Josh Matthews and Don Callis. Hogan wanted the world to know that now she's looking out for only herself.
So it looks like she might have gotten a hold of Hulk Hogan, is now taking some of his advice.
I guess Kiera's listening to Hulk Hogan. I'm not really sure if she's spoken with him or anything, but it sounds like she's taken a page from him. So not only does Kiera Hogan have a new look, but she's got a completely different attitude as well. Now, the match spilled to the outside of the ring when Grace tossed Madison Rayne out of the ring and over the top rope. Jordan is such a powerhouse in the knockouts division with her delayed vertical suplex against Madison Rayne. Now, Madison then locked in the Koji clutch, but Grace came back with another submission of her own. Madison wasn't done just yet as she hit a ripcord cutter, but Grace hit her muscle buster. However, Grace only managed to get a 2 count. Now, Kiera got bored of sitting at commentary, so she just got up. She turned Jordan Grace's attention away from the match. This distraction gave Madison the right opening to hit the Cross Rain to get the W. So then the Sandman, he had a quick match against Killer Cross, and from the very start, Sandman tried to use his kendo stick for a shortcut to finish the match quicker, but it didn't work too well because he missed his attack when he was swinging away at Killer Cross. Now, Killer Cross was much smarter than that, and he applied a cross jacket submission, causing the Sandman to quickly tap out. You don't really see the Sandman tap out too often, do you? He's usually a pretty violent guy. I couldn't picture him tapping out, but he did just there.
Yeah, very rare occurrence. You really never see the Sandman tap out, so that's a notch in Killer Cross's belt, to say the least.
Yeah, that really makes Killer Cross look a lot more lethal and hostile and just dangerous. Now, the Sandman looked like he was out cold, but Killer Cross, he wouldn't release the hold, and this sent out Eddie Edwards to make the save. And unlike the Sandman, Edwards managed to get in some hits on Killer Cross using Kenny 2.0, that kendo stick that the Sandman gave to Eddie Edwards as a gift. Now, Conan reminded us how LAX kept their Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championships because previously Trey Miguel got involved in the match, and Trey thought he was actually in the match, but he was the illegal man in, as he was never scheduled to be in the match, so his pin didn't count, and it resulted in the Rascals losing by disqualification, and that's how LAX retained their championships. But the Rascals weren't too happy about this. They wanted a rematch. If it wasn't for Trey Miguel drinking from a flask and not knowing where he was and getting involved, that wouldn't have happened. So that's why the Rascals want their rematch. So Zach Wentz wanted to go at it against Santana, and the two began to fight, but LAX took out Wentz, and that's when LAX accepted the rematch. So we now know that LAX will defend their Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championships against the Rascals at Slammiversary on July 7th in Dallas, Texas. Up next, we saw Scarlett Bordeaux. She hosted her smoke show, and this time her special guest was none other than Knockouts champion Taya Valkyrie. Scarlett learned that if Taya doesn't defend her championship next week, that will mean that Taya's 30-day title defense clause will expire, and Taya could be stripped of the Knockouts championship. So Scarlett revealed that Su Yung will be Taya's challenger next week, and Taya didn't look too happy as she walked off. So what do you think is on Taya's mind as she goes up against Su Yung? I mean, James Mitchell, you know he's probably going to be there. He's got two monsters right there, Jessica Havoc and Su Yung.
It just seems like if I'm Tyra, I would definitely consider giving somebody else a title shot over Su Yung. I think whoever made that decision has it out for the Knockouts champion.
Yeah, Taya definitely has a lot to worry about as she tries to retain her championship. So Michael Elgin, he took on Willie Mack in the main event of the evening, and X Division champion Rich Swann was at ringside to have Willie Mack's back. Earlier into the show, I mentioned that Johnny Impact offered to watch Elgin's back as well, but Elgin declined the offer. Now, Elgin looked very confident that he could do it on his own, so that's probably why he kind of told Johnny Impact not to get involved. So late into the match, Willie Mack was flying at Elgin, but Elgin improvised and grabbed Rich Swann, using him as a human shield to prevent taking damage from Mack's attack from the air. But Elgin closed out the match with a clothesline, a buckle bomb, and finally an Elgin bomb to get the victory. Now, while the match was already over, Elgin wasn't done making sure that he'd send Willie Mack to the hospital. So Unbreakable Michael Elgin, his attack on Willie Mack didn't just end there. Rich Swann made the save, protecting his friend Willie Mack. Now, while Elgin earlier told Johnny Impact not to help him in his match, I guess Johnny figured that the match was already over, so it was fair game. And Johnny played the role of the equalizer as he attacked Rich Swann to even things up, but this only made Elgin more angry. Johnny found himself under attack in the force of Elgin's German suplex. Now, with Johnny out of the picture after not taking Elgin's hint, Elgin refocused his attack on Willie Mack. Elgin then sent Willie Mack back first into the steel post, and Elgin closed the show looking dominant over anyone that crossed his path, including Johnny Impact, who was just trying to help Elgin. Then Unbreakable Michael Elgin showed why the current Impact World Champion Brian Cage better come prepared when they meet at Slammiversary on July 7th in Dallas, Texas, when the Impact World Championship is up for grabs. So with that said, we're about to start Lights Out, where we talk about everything coming soon to Impact Wrestling.
I'm surprised you're containing yourself. It's like looking at a work of art, Josh. Scarlett Bordeaux has arrived on Impact Wrestling. Oh my God.
They tell them to cover up. I will not be hot-shamed.
Talk about making an impact.
Make wrestling sexy again.
Scarlett Bordeaux has arrived. And now she's leaving, and it's, oh Lord.
Turn the lights down low, because it's time for Impact Lights Out.
Hey, this is Felix the Cat Katlovski, and you were just listening to Fear After Dark. We're just starting Lights Out right now, and if you're just joining us, you probably heard about what happened at Impact when Michael Elgin told Johnny Impact not to get involved in his match against Willie Mack. Johnny, I guess he waited long enough, the match was over, and when he came to make the save to be that equalizer because Rich Swann was there getting involved, Johnny Impact, he didn't get the hint. Michael Elgin, he told him not to be there, and he took him out with a German suplex. Michael Elgin looking strong and sending a message to Brian Cage that he better come prepared at Slammiversary. For Lights Out, we know the matches for Impact Wrestling for this week on June 21st. Of course, after last week's Impact, Rich Swann is looking to get revenge on both Johnny Impact and Michael Elgin, but now we see that Elgin and Impact are no longer on the same page. So what will happen when Rich Swann takes on Michael Elgin as well as Johnny Impact? Do you think they're just playing head games right here, or do you think Michael Elgin and Johnny Impact really do have beef with each other? I mean, if this is all a game, then Rich Swann's outnumbered.
Between Elgin and Johnny Impact, there's only room for one top dog, and Michael Elgin, he thinks he's the man. You know, he's going into Slammiversary ready to take that championship from Brian Cage, the Machine, and then you have Michael Elgin. He kind of wants Rich Swann all to himself. He really doesn't want Johnny Impact involved in his business.
So if Rich Swann sees an opportunity, I mean, he sees that there's a wedge driving between Johnny Impact and Michael Elgin, he might take that opportunity and score a big upset because he knows that these guys are not on the same page. They used to have an alliance, and now that alliance doesn't look like it's so strong. So this would be Rich Swann's opportunity to get a huge upset over these two men.
Yeah, so we'll see if he can get the job done.
And it's almost been 30 days, and Taya still hasn't defended her Knockouts Championship. Taya wasn't too happy to learn from Scarlett Bordeaux that Taya could be stripped of her championship if she doesn't defend it later this week. So we have a match set. It's the Knockouts Championship match between Su Yung taking on the champion Taya Valkyrie.
And like I said, whoever made that match really has it out for the Knockouts champion.
Yeah, I mean, they must not be happy to see that Taya thinks that she can just go on without defending that championship for 30 days. They want to see her be a fighting champion, even if they have to force it out of her.
So we'll see if she's not able to retain the championship there.
That's right. Then we have Sami Callihan. He really shouldn't have intruded into the women's locker room. I don't know if he was trying to be Dora the Explorer over there, exploring places he shouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, how would you feel if you're Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan just barges into the women's locker room, and I mean, that's your privacy right there. Well, what do you think, Tessa Blanchard? How do you think she feels like?
Tessa Blanchard, yeah, she's a woman, but she's not gonna take disrespect from anybody, whether they be female or male, and she probably feels she can beat all the men in Impact Wrestling as well.
So now, Sammy's boy from OVE will have to feel the wrath of Tessa Blanchard, and once again, Tessa will be showing us why she's a diamond, and she'll be proving again, like you mentioned, that she can go up against the men. So it's Tessa Blanchard versus Jay Chris from OVE. And after Tommy Dreamer tried to pick a fight with Moose on the defensive, after RVD and Sabu's match with the North, Moose is looking to go on the offense. So it's Tommy Dreamer taking on Moose. Who do you think is going to be victorious in that match?
Moose is really firing on all cylinders. It seems to me he feels a little bit disrespected that Rob Van Dam can just walk back into Impact Wrestling after being gone for multiple years. And honestly, Moose wants to make a name for himself, and what better way to do it than to beat somebody who has been world champion in not only Impact Wrestling, but he's also been a former WWE and ECW world champion. So, for Moose, this could be the biggest win of his career, potentially at Slammiversary. And then as far as Tommy Dreamer goes, well, I think Moose is just going to have to send a message to RVD, and Tommy Dreamer looks like he's just going to be in the way.
You see the guys like the Sandman tapping out to Killer Kross. Now, that doesn't take away anything from Killer Kross, but the Sandman, he's getting old. A loss to Tommy Dreamer for Moose, does that look pathetic to Moose if he loses to Tommy Dreamer?
I don't know if I'd say pathetic, but it would be an upset for sure if Tommy Dreamer was to pull off the win. And who knows, what's going to stop RVD from getting involved and maybe helping Tommy Dreamer in this match?
Or Sabu.
Yeah, so Moose seems to have this on again, off again partnership with the North. You better hope the North is on his side, because he may need them.
Yeah, what happens if they get tired of Moose with his ego saying, oh, I'm with you guys, oh, I'm against you guys, oh, I'm with you guys? Make up your mind, Moose. What happens if the North just decides to turn their back on Moose or cost him the match?
Yeah, if you're the North, you're looking to make an opportunity. Yeah, you have the future Impact Tag Team Championship match in your back pocket, but it just seems like those two guys, Paige and the Walking Weapon, don't take nothing from anybody. They don't really care about having friends. They just want to go out there and get victories and potentially beat LAX for those Impact Tag Team titles.
That's right, and they've definitely made a name for themselves, establishing their tag team and really being a force to be reckoned with, because you've seen how they've closed out some of their matches. It's just all about tag team combination maneuvers right there. They are definitely a team.
Yeah, they're a throwback. They're a throwback to some of the great teams in the late 80s, early 90s for sure.
So that's about all the matches for Impact Wrestling for June 21st for later this week, but there are several events throughout the calendar year. Let's talk about Bash at the Brewery. That takes place on Friday, July 5th on Impact Plus from San Antonio, Texas. Now, after defeating RVD and Sabu, Ethan Page and the Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander from the North, they became the number one contenders for the Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championships. And that means that they earned themselves a match against LAX at Bash at the Brewery. So what do you think's on LAX's mind? They have to worry about the Rascals coming up at Slammiversary, but before the Rascals can even get their match, LAX have to retain that gold when they take on the North at Bash at the Brewery on July 5th.
Yeah, I think if you're LAX, you just want to go out there and prove you're the best tag team in the world. There's a lot of tag teams and a lot of different promotions that try to stick that claim that they're the best in the world. But if you're LAX, if you can go out there and potentially beat, I would say right now, the number one and maybe number two contenders in the North and the Rascals, if you can beat two quality tag teams in the same weekend, that's going to do nothing but rise the stock of LAX.
And just think about the calendar. July 5th, that's Bash at the Brewery. Just 2 days later, that's Slammiversary. So you don't have a lot of time to prepare for both of these teams. You need to close out that first show at Bash at the Brewery and retain your championships if you're LAX. And then you can only set your sights on the Rascals. And you can't underestimate any of these competitors that LAX have.
No, you can't. And I think the important thing for LAX is they've been in the ring with the Rascals before. Like you said, last week they almost lost the Impact Tag Team Championship, but however, Trey Miguel was the illegal man in the match, so they ended up getting disqualified because of that. But right now, if you're the Rascals, you gotta come in this match with a clear head, no partying before the match or whatever they do. They gotta come out there and they gotta focus on getting the victory, and then you can party after you win the titles after Slammiversary.
You say that to the Rascals, but LAX, they need to do the same thing, no partying. I mean, Conan always tells them, hey, don't get ahead of yourself right after they won their championships. He didn't want them to celebrate. He wanted them to keep that gold.
Yeah, and it's hard for LAX not to celebrate because you've seen what they've done in Impact Wrestling. So, you know their reputation, and honestly, if you're Conan or if you're Impact Wrestling, maybe you try to bring in some more competition for LAX, because complacency is dangerous, and right now LAX seems to be complacent, and if they're complacent going into that first weekend in July bash at the Brewery and Slammiversary, they could easily be defeated by one of those teams.
So on July 6th, it's going to be Deep Impact that's taking place in Houston, Texas, and it will be on the Twitch app. It will be a joint show involving Impact Wrestling and Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. Then on July 7th, it's Slammiversary from Dallas, Texas. We know that the Impact World Title match will be taking place. It's Unbreakable Michael Elgin taking on the champion, The Machine, Brian Cage. We also know that Rich Swann will be taking on Johnny Impact. RVD will be taking on Moose. Impact Tag Team Championship on the line when the Rascals take on LAX, the champions, assuming LAX makes it that far to Slammiversary as the champions, because they still have to worry about the North 2 nights before at Bash at the Brewery.
Yeah, so the North could easily walk into Slammiversary as the tag team champions. So if you're the Rascals, do you have a preference maybe on who you want to maybe take on? Would you rather take on the North? I mean, we know they've had a little issue in the past. Or would you rather take on LAX? Or do you care if you're the Rascals at this point?
As long as Trey Miguel doesn't lose his spot and drink too much of that flask, I don't think the Rascals care. I mean, they just need to secure their opportunity to become the champions.
Exactly.
No matter which team it is, you need to be prepared for either one. And that's just how it is. So then, on Sunday, July 14th, it's been announced Fallout will be taking place in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. That's just outside of Toronto, from the Don Kolov Arena at Battle Arts Academy. No word yet if this will be a pay-per-view, a Twitch event, or an Impact Plus event. Just stay tuned for more updates as they become available. So that about does it for Lights Out. This has been Fear After Dark and Lights Out on Talk Wrestling Live, heard on NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the Underground starts with you.
You've been listening to Talk Wrestling Live. Listen live on Mondays at 4 p.m. on NorthCoastUnderground.com.
And follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
Goodbye and good night, bad. Rest in peace.